Hey guys, welcome back to Hash Talk with Hash Pine Friends. On this special edition of Hash Talk, I've got my good homie over here, Brett, Mary's Motivation. Definite trailblazer. He's got a lot of good fun stories to share. I'm really excited that he's here. And then as always, I got my main terp man over here, my main terp stain.
What up, guys? How's it going? So excited to be here today, especially this one. It's gonna be a good one, guys.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. My man Terp goes to Wizards. As always, it's a pleasure having you in here with your input. It's
Thank
always
you.
valuable. Yeah.
I love the nickname Terpstain.
That's hilarious.
I just came up with that.
That's a very good one. That's
very funny.
Cool, right on. So yeah, I mean, as always, we always consume a little bit while we're talking and stuff. I've got a dab loaded up here, and I got some flour I'll be rolling up. But let's start with Brett. Let's start with what brought you into the cannabis industry. Did you have interest before legalization and med and rec and all that?
Yeah. So.
Is that kind of like made you want to come out to Colorado after they started?
I guess the first thing that truly, I started smoking. I never thought, when I first started smoking that it'd ever be possible to legally do anything with cannabis. Mm-hmm. Like I didn't even like having that as an option of like what I'm doing. There was no even thought of that back then when I was like 7. I started really smoking 17, 18.
Me too.
Yeah, but I smoked 3 times. First 3 times, never got high. Started thinking I might be that person that like receptors didn't work and I wouldn't get high. So I got really high the 4th time, and then yeah. But basically,
what was your first experience with hash? Did you have experience with hash before the industry?
Kind of. That was in college, but before even college, like it was kind of like that time when I found hash, but a little bit before, like my freshman year of college. I went to this thing called Hash Bash.
Is that Michigan?
Yes.
All right,
It's in Michigan. It's in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Yeah.
They've been having it every year since like 1969, I believe.
Is that old?
Yeah. And it basically used to be a big activist march for legalization, and there'd be, people speeches and, kind of a rally and a huge smoke out. And I went like 2008, 9, and 10, I believe. But 2008 was the first time, and I remember someone was having a speech up there. He was actually one of the head of the NORML organization for, normalizing marijuana reform laws and stuff. And basically, I was like, wow, like it was the first time it kind of hit me. I was like, this guy's up there. And I ended up talking to him on the side of the stage, but like this is what he did for a living. And I was like, there might be, options. There might be, because I just saw that there was, medical cannabis being somewhat done in other states. I was like, wait, maybe there's an option in the future. You never know, hopes and hopes. And then it was really the big thing, the big turn was it was in 2013. I was in college. Most kids, going to spring break, and I went to a big Illinois. I went to Illinois State, and a lot of fraternities and sororities. So they went to PCB. It was like the big thing. And I almost went and would have spent the only money I had. But then I saw on High Times, it was the first, they were like advertising like first national cannabis High Times Cup. Like you only had to be 21 plus to go.
For like the United States?
Yes, for the United States. So I was like, wait, what? And I started reading, doing a little research, and I was like, is this true? Like, you only got to be 21 to go to this, and they're saying you can smoke, and I was like, no. So I actually I bought the ticket. So I'm like, if I buy the ticket, I'm going to get somebody else to buy the ticket. So I got my buddies to buy, like 3 other friends to buy tickets. We all road tripped out here in 2013. I stayed off down in Colfax, right down the street from the Fillmore, like literally right across the street from the Fillmore, next to the 7-Eleven.
Oh yeah, I know exactly.
You know exactly what I'm talking about. A lot of crackheads, but saw a lot of crazy shit for the first time in Colorado. But it turned out to be kind of cool because I started walking down the street, seeing like dispensaries, and I was like, dude, there's people that actually work here. I went in and asked a couple questions, and I was like, you know what? I'm moving here after I graduate in college. Like, I'm moving here after I graduate. And basically, I went back to school. It was like 2.5 more months. I graduated my senior year. And then went back home, stayed with my brother. and just started selling stuff on Craigslist.
Yep.
Literally flipping cars, flipping TVs, anything I could find and sell. And then made about like $4,000 and then moved out here.
Yeah.
And just wanted to get to where it was legal.
So like 2013, 2014?
2013. So I moved out here exactly September 1st, 2013. I ended up...
so right before Rec made law.
Yes, right
So they
before
were
law.
voting on it right then.
Yes.
Yep. So no, that was a good time to move out here because you got here right before the wave.
Yeah.
And that's when I moved here too, is July of 2013.
Yeah, it was a good time. I mean, I feel like I didn't like it wasn't like I wanted to go to college here. I got accepted, but like I paid my way through, so it was very expensive to be out of state if you went to like Boulder or even Fort Collins. So yeah, I was happy to finally get out here after I was all done. I was ski bum for a little bit, screw weed, through the medical bylaws and stuff of caregivers and stuff like that. Just snowboarded a lot for like the first season or two I was here. And then got a job working in the industry. Figure out what I had to do to get my badge. And
so what did you
do all
want to
that.
do? So what was your ambition? And when you got into the industry, what were you like I'm gonna go get my badge?
Growing
and
weed
this
at
is what I'm
first.
gonna do. So you wanted to be a grower.
At first, I've been growing weed since about 2007. I guess I don't know if there's like those statute of limits on certain things, but
Right.
I know there's exactly the statute of
Because
limits.
when I got here, I understand that. Like, that's a lot of, like,
Well, anyways,
seeing people's growth.
I maybe I could take that back, but no, I don't really care because I don't really give two craps about that shit. Honestly, I really think that just be true to yourself if you're not truly hurting somebody and you're trying to just do your best.
Right.
The good universe will take care of you. But anyways, yeah, I've been growing for a while, and that's what I wanted to do. And that's what I kind of first when I moved out here was kind of doing, setting up grows and doing that. And
no, that's dope. It was So the industry, I remember. So I moved here in July of 2014, right after the legalization. I had already come down here earlier in April. And I was like, all right, this is what I'm going to do, get a job, all that. But it was there was thousands and thousands of people applying for badges. I mean, there was like a 6-hour wait at the MED to get your badge at that time.
Shout out to the lady at the MED badge that actually helped me out because I understand what you're talking about. And when I actually went and got my badge, I tried the first time, and actually that's why I had 2 seasons in Winter Park, and it was a ski bum for 2 seasons because the second season wasn't planned. I was trying to go get my badge, but due to some other things, the lady's like, hey, like you could turn on all your paperwork, you could pay us, but I can almost tell you're probably going to get denied right now just because like you're not in trouble, but you're like on court supervision. And if you got in trouble while you're on court supervision, those old things could come up. So like we can't give you your badge. So I'm just going to like, not act like I told you this, and you should just come back when it's all taken care of. And I was like, you know what? Thank you. I was kind of upset, but I was like, thank you so much. She was really nice for that.
So that's because I'm not going to name any names. So same thing happened to somebody that I know. He was worried about something he could have been in trouble for, but didn't know if he was actually in trouble for it. And the lawyer was like, dude, go get your badge. Go apply for your badge. And if you don't get it, then we know.
Yeah.
And then he straight up went there, and the same thing. The lady was like, look, I got to tell you this.
Yeah.
And he was like, all right, took all his paperwork, didn't waste his money and all that stuff.
Yeah, so that's really nice of them because honestly, like I've heard some horror stories of going to get your badge.
Getting arrested.
Well, like just
I've
people
seen people get cuffed at the
So
MED.
they've changed it a lot. So they've changed that, and they changed it a lot. Actually, I just had to do it all over. So I actually get through one of my jobs right now. I do get a lot of people asking like, how can I get a job with you? How can I?
That's like the
so like
question.
I always tell people, well, first you got to be a resident. First you got to get your badge, and they're like, well, how do you get your badge? And like I usually just point them in the direction of the website, but. Like I just went through it all over again, like from scratch, had to do it all over again because my badge lapsed from me traveling. And basically, they changed a lot. It used to be 7 or 10 years. I think when I first started, it was 10 years. Then it went down to 7. Now it's down to 3.
Yeah.
So it used to be like, have you gotten any felonies or in trouble for less like 10 years or 7 years? Now it's 3 years. So they have, taken that back a lot from the start of it. So a lot of people, because I've had some friends that can't work legally in the industry due to some prior things with cannabis. So it's kind of crazy that's from cannabis and they can't work with cannabis.
What's funny is that if it wasn't for these folks that were getting in trouble before legalization, we wouldn't have these SOPs that started the fucking industry.
Yep.
You know?
Well, 100%.
And they were like, "Oh,
100%.
you can't work in the industry because you got in trouble for doing this."
Well,
but
I
we're
mean,
gonna do the exact same thing you
you
did.
did.
And we're gonna take all the stuff that you started.
Well, that's the craziest part is like if you really do read a lot of papers and backlog websites and, you know, and you actually see what really is happening and you know certain people in the industry and you see what's happening, like that's what in a lot of states after, you know, it went like California, Colorado, and like certain states were like then it just became monopolized. And a lot of like newer states, like you will see, and if you look, like certain people that are in the government, from, you know, the judicial system, from being like judges or lawyers to being ex-police officers or chief of police, are now the prime holders of licenses.
Yeah.
And that's and there's only certain, like in the state only gives certain licenses out. So
Yeah,
it's kind
no,
of
you're
like
absolutely right.
it's funny. Like if you really know what's going on, it's
And the people that
sad.
are
Sad.
head of security and running all the security stuff, they're all former military. You know, and
Yeah.
so the ones, because I mean, there's guns in the industries, folks. There's definitely guns. You know, and I've seen it from the security guards and all that. And I've talked to them. They're like, "Oh yeah, no, we're former military."
Well, I
We're
mean,
getting out of here
technically,
and doing
you
that."
can't unless it's changed as well. Like, I can have I can have a gun on me right now because I don't have a medical card. I can have my badge, and I can even have a conceal and carry on my badge, and you can't.
But
so
you just can't carry onto a facility, and you can't be in a park.
that's not even. Yes, that's true to a certain point, but you can actually be deemed. Like, I know at one point in one of my jobs, we had somebody that was our delivery guy that if you wouldn't know it, he was always carrying, because we technically also deemed him, you know, he had the right license and permits to carry it on premises as well.
So yeah, they
So he was like, I guess kind of you could say an extra security guard as well, but like
Right.
a lot of people didn't know. I remember I get in the car once and he like pulled it out. I was like, what the fuck? And he's like, oh yeah, you didn't know. Like,
Yeah.
this is like the other part of my job.
You
Right.
used to have to be a designated security company to transport and all that, but they changed that. And
I mean, I transport now.
yeah. And so I mean, now you don't even have. You used to have like, then it was like a key badge. You know, now you don't even have to have a fucking green badge anymore.
Well, there's no such thing now.
Oh, that's right. It's just all one.
It's all one badge now.
Yeah.
That's something I just learned when I got my badge. Like, there's no such thing as.
You've seen
those-
the CID for picture.
Well, that's the one I
That's
have.
the COVID.
I have the COVID one.
Yeah.
I literally have CID for picture. I have the same. I have the same thing. So because I just got mine. I didn't really need it for what I was doing, but
Right.
now I kind of worked in, you know, to do deliveries as well, to tag team with other things I was doing anyways.
So let's track back to when you started in the industry, and so what were some of the first jobs and lab experiences that you had? So what year was this?
So it was. I started working, you know, I guess. So I was working like in the caregiving space, I guess you could call it the gray market, if you will. Somewhat it's dwindling now.
Oh, caregivers is fine. I mean, it was medical.
Well, it was back then, but it was way different than it is now.
Yeah, it's definitely not recognized anymore.
Yeah. But basically, I got a job at first. Oh, so it's a funny story. So I'm all about positivity, you know, somewhat being the best person you can be every day. Even if some days, you know, you want to lay in bed and sulk, it's okay. But like, don't doing that 2 days, 3 days in a row. But like being the best person you can. And I remember I got a job. Like, I was looking for a cannabis job, just looking. I mean, I had a college degree. I had my badge. I'm like, dude, I was like Craigslist and fucking.
Nobody cares about your degree.
No one gives a shit.
No.
It's about the people you know and,
Yeah.
and somewhat what you know and this
Yeah.
and that and what you can bring in. But it just like wasn't working. I was getting really pissed. So I was like towards where I needed to actually have a job. My savings was going away, and I just moved from the mountains down to Denver and bought a car, thinking like I'd get a job pretty quick, and it just like wasn't really working. And I went to this interview for an insurance place, because that's originally when I went to school for. I have multiple degrees in business and insurance and startups and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, they're offering a pretty good start. It was like $60K starting plus bonuses. And all I really was doing was going to be going to like veterans and people of the military that were in certain banks and offering them different insurances. And just like, there's tons of jobs like that. And I've kind of done that through, you know, internships and, you know, had friends do it and somewhat. I accepted actually. I had to pay like $100 and something to get on this program on on the computer to start doing stuff. So I honestly, like, they sold me, they got me, but like it was gonna be a fine job. Like I would have made money, but on the way home, like something in my heart, something was like, hey, you came to Colorado to work with weed. Like, you moved from the mountains where you're snowboarding every day, 100 days a year snowboarding, just growing weed, down to Denver to work with weed legally. If you get this job just to like pay the bills, quote unquote, you're gonna end up like staying there because it's a decent paying job.
Right.
Like, I knew if I worked hard, I could. They had a couple people I talked to that I could have easily probably made 6 figures if I actually worked hard. And I usually am when that's all I'm doing is I like work. It's just what I do. So on the way home, I was like, I don't know, man. Like, I really don't. And I had only one other time that I talked with a business owner of like an edible hash-ish company. And I was going home like, you know what? I'm just going to call him. I'm going to call him and say I'll work for free. Like, I'm going to work for free and I'll just only take a small commission, work commission only. And because I want to work in the space and like that'll lead to something. And literally I get home, I call this dude and I was like, hey, like, I know I talked to you like a couple weeks ago. Like, I haven't really heard from you, but like, I want to help you. I want to work with you. Like, you don't have to pay me. Like, I'll work commission only. Like, let's do something. And he basically was like, come in tomorrow. Let's talk.
Oh.
So I literally messaged the other dude that got me, like, I was technically already said I took the job for it, the insurance thing, and I was like, hey, man, like, I know I said I was going to be there tomorrow and I was going to do this, and but I don't think it's the right fit. Like, I got to pull out. I'm sorry.
All right.
And I lost, like, the whole $100 and whatever dollars it was to sign up. Like, that was the...
Yeah.
So, and for me, like, at the time, that was a lot, and I'm I used to be a very money-minded, driven person. So I was like, that almost is what made me stay. Just that little bit of money almost made me stay. And I know a lot of people are that way as well. But I ended up starting at this job. It was CWD Meds, I think. Colorado Wholesale Distribution, yes. CWD.
Shout out.
And they actually, if you know, they do like the Pop Rocks. If you ever seen like the Pop Rock candy.
Yeah. I remember those.
Yeah. So I've seen them through. Not since I've been back, but I've seen them.
They've kind of died out.
Yeah, but I've seen them before. But so when I worked there, I was just doing like sales, and I worked for like a couple weeks, and within that couple weeks, I actually got a job as a bud tender. Like, I literally one day got a job at the place across from the aquarium on the corner. If you know the Denver Aquarium, there's that building. So I worked there upstairs for one day, and then I got called by this like agency. She's like, hey, like, I got this job, like, it's a bud tending job. Do you want it? And I'm like, where'd you get she's like, I got your stuff from, Craigslist and this and that. And I'm like, where's it at? She told me the store. I was like, you know what? I just started this bud tending job today. So no, thank you. Like, I have higher qualifications. So like, if you have some management thing or something that comes through, like let me know. And I hang up. She calls me back like 10, 15 minutes later. She's like, actually, there's this thing that came through. I think it might be perfect for you. And I'm like, what is it? And she's like, it's a lab manager for Evo Lab.
What?
and I'm like, okay.
Right off the bat.
I'm like, okay. I'm like, well, what, and the whole time I'm putting out good management vibes. Like, I'm like, I just want to be a man. Cause like, that's what I went to school for originally. That's what I have like degrees in.
Yeah.
Even though at the time, like, anybody manager, like, my mindset is way different on this than it used to be. But I was like, I need a management job to feel valuable or something like that. And basically, I was like, okay, I'll take the interview. I think I've seen their oil before. I remember going to Mile High Dispensary and on Federal, or I think it was on Federal, and like and trying their stuff. So I went in, interviewed, did like 2 rounds, I think, and ended up getting the job. And then basically that was the big foot in the door. That was the big, all right, I'm with a good company. I have a good position. And now, in my opinion, it was just like now almost, it's funny because I have a lot of stories I could say. It's almost like sticking to my guns of what I truly believe and who I know I am and what I truly know.
So what was their top product they were making when you got hired?
I mean, it was like, the funny thing is like they don't have anything on their
because
menus.
so you're talking like 2013.
Yeah, this is going to be 2000. I think technically it was 2015.
15. Okay, so we've already rounded the corner for Shatter and Hollis. So resin was a thing.
Live resin, no, it was live. It was still Shatter. Shatter was like where it was at in the industry for oil at the time.
So that was your main thing, was the Shatter.
No, they were CO2. So they were CO2, and the main thing,
spending a lot of money.
They were doing just CO2 carts, and then they had like this CO2 oil that you could
Syringes.
dab. Not even really syringes yet.
It was grams.
It was like somewhat of grams. They had this one product that I absolutely didn't like, but it was called Amber.
Yeah.
And it was like their CO2 shatter, which
Yeah, it was just like sappy.
yeah, no, but we had some like actually true CO2 shatter, and then we had some sap stuff, and then but like the thing is like what really somewhat got me to be noticed, and it wasn't like I was at the time the energy probably definitely felt more out of disrespect. I wasn't trying to, but I was definitely young and stupid and didn't know what energy or my understanding myself was.
Yeah.
But the owner would like give stuff out. And I was the lab manager, so I'd be like one of the people like higher ups would get some stuff, sometimes the fillers and stuff like that. But he'd give stuff out and he's like, "Oh, try it, let us know what you think." And like this is where like I had to just be real. Like he'd go to everybody, the owner of the company, and he'd be like, "Oh, like how do you like it?" And everybody like would be like, "Oh, I love it. It's awesome.
Yeah,
it's
course,
awesome. It's
of
awesome."
course.
And he'd come to me, and like every single person said awesome, and I was like, "Honestly, you want the truth? Oh shit!" I actually threw it out. I didn't even want to give it to my friends.
Yeah.
And like he would like I remember like one time he
Crap,
like
trash.
gave me a shit look and like walked away, and I had the other lab manager. He's like, "Why are you talking to him like that? Like he's gonna fire you." And this is how I looked at it. I was like, "All right, he's either gonna fire me because he doesn't like the way I'm talking to him," which understandable. Maybe I should toe it back a little bit, but I was giving him the honest truth and it wasn't being disrespectful.
Of course.
Or eventually he's gonna listen to me. Eventually he's gonna listen to me and he's gonna maybe ask why I said that, because he didn't ask the why. I was hoping to explain more. He just turned around and walked away. And then what happened was, a couple months go by, almost this kind of same stuff. And in the industry, it's also somewhat of credit validation.
Oh yeah.
It's hardcore credit validation in some jobs of like how you get to certain positions. And shout out like hardcore. I don't think he ever knew this, because I don't know. I might have told him in some smoke sessions and stuff, but huge shout out to Nicotine, homie for life. But
Oh yeah. Shout out to Nicotine.
yeah, so I used to do some work with him and stuff like that. But before even that, I remember coming into a meeting once where he was with the CEO. It was just him and Nicotine, and they were talking about doing a collab that we did. And he literally like in the middle of the meeting, they're like at a nice like big table, and like in the middle of the meeting, like I'm coming in to give a report over to somebody else in the executive office, and like he like gets up and he's like, "Brett, what the fuck's up?" And he like comes over and like gives me a hug, and he's like, "You got this guy working for you?" And then literally like almost like gave validation to, I kind of knew what I was talking about. I knew the industry, and people in the industry knew me.
Sure.
And literally the next day I get pulled in by the CEO and at the time like the marketing sales manager, and I got basically put as like one of the main heads of the marketing department.
Dude,
And,
that's
and
so
that's when
awesome.
like Evil Web started doing all the events.
Yeah.
We started seeing more
job.
marketing. And that's actually when right before that we like take it a step back. What we were doing in the lab was we actually Evil Lab is a huge company. A lot of people don't understand what they've done for the industry.
Right.
And the team that I was working with back in is more end of the 15, beginning I think of 2016, if I remember correctly. We were literally at the time distillate.
Yeah, I remember when distillate hit right around the end of 2015.
Yeah, distillate. All at the time that the way distillate was being made, which is it still is in a lot of parts, is bench top short path distillation.
Yep.
Or
And
like
that's like pretty much industry standard. Everybody around there is doing that if they're just gonna
start.
like, exactly,
Yeah,
they're
get
gonna
in the
start.
game. That's where you're gonna start. Or if you had a little bit money at the time, you got into like a Pope and you had like evaporation distillation, and it's end product can be the same thing, different processes to get to the end product, and end product sometimes isn't still the same thing. So what happened was we were from my knowledge and from the knowledge of a lot of people, we were like the first to do thin film distillation in the industry.
Okay.
Before even Root Science, like a lot of people, like shout out Root Science, they have a machine that is used by a lot of people out there that just pumps oil out, and we actually were the first people to have that machine.
That's a huge machine. I've seen it. It'll fill up a whole room.
Yeah.
And it's a beast. They'll just pump it and pump it. I mean, I don't I'm not trying to disregard it, but they pump it full of trash, and it's spitting out gold.
Well,
out
I mean,
the
that's
other
just
end,
it. You could,
know?
I mean,
Yeah, and
I won't lie. You could turn shit into gold.
Oh yeah, and people when they first saw distillate were astonished because they had no idea how it was
I
made.
mean, it's potent it's good for. So I will say, hey, it's good for certain things. But the one thing I did learn, working for EvoLab, I learned a lot. We did a lot of different, behind the table, studies and a lot of things that are still used to this day. And the one thing is like we also were, the forefront of terpene extraction, like full terpene extraction. At the time, Blue River, if you know Blue River,
Right.
they were the
Yeah,
only
of
ones
course.
selling terpenes on the market kind of at the time, and it was more if that was
And like the
terp
quarter
trap.
gram.
Yeah, and quarter gram, and it was and it was like clearish, and but those are coming from terp traps, and if you know the terp trapper and stuff like that, they all are in
Cold
this.
traps.
Yeah, they're
in
all
between the back oven and the
yeah,
pump and
they're
stuff.
all in a certain range and stuff like that. What we were doing, we're actually doing the full spectrum of terpenes off a cannabis plant, like doing different. I'm not going to go into full details, but going to certain processes before certain processes to allow us to do, strip it of certain things and have.
So can we briefly explain? So we're talking about how Short Path was just like an intro to it, and then you had your thin film. So can you briefly explain maybe the process or the difference between Short Path and thin film for our listeners?
Yeah, Short Path. I mean, it's the same process as using like heat, suction, like vacuum, pressure, negative pressure, and using it in certain ways to pull and separate molecularly chemicals. And with the Short Path, it's a lot smaller contraption. It's bench top Short Path, like you can go on a bench top. It's very small. You can get into bigger units as well. And they started doing that, but then the faster and quicker and cleaner way
Yeah.
is thin film, and that's now what the majority. If you're a pen producer of distillate, you take a lot of what you started over at EvoLab, and like you take that because that's kind of now what the standard is of what we started over there, and it's thin film is taking this crap, as you say. There's certain processes that you have to do with this quote unquote crap before it looks like crap because it is like black, it's like tar.
Yeah,
But you do certain things before it to filter certain things out to not gunk up the machine and this and that, and then what you do is you put it in the machine and there's like a blade, like wipers in it. There's rollers, there's wipers, there's depending on what companies and stuff like that, and it goes around a surface. And usually there's either a very small amount of contact, but enough to where when you start feeding this through, and there's usually different walls between like that wall that it's being rubbed on and then a middle column, and that's like the cold finger. And what you're doing is you're spreading a thin layer of this crap along the walls and then having different temperatures, which then are able to like and almost like suck, depending on how you set it. It's all about setting the right temperatures and pressures, and you're able to pull certain cannabinoids or compounds off if you set it the right parameters and not other ones.
Is thin film, I guess, better suited for high quantity runs, so for like mass runs, or can you do smaller runs on thin film?
I mean, you can do small. See, that's just it, in life and in cannabis as well. Small, big is very relative. Something small to you might be big to somebody else. Something big to me might be humongous to you.
Yeah, I guess so. Like, what would be a typical run for you guys then?
Well, I mean, it'd be like you have like columns that you can fill up, but now like there's if you're working in the CBD industry, there's like people that are doing humongous volumes
With hemp. And,
with hemp and crude out of that industry. So like, and it's doing basically the same thing. I mean, there's definitely different processes, and I'm not going to say I'm an expert even in the one I'm talking about now. I do know a lot more than the average person.
Facts.
Yeah, but there is like ethanol washing, which I know is huge in the hemp and CBD industry. So
I can imagine.
that's a different process.
Yeah. So I mean, that brings us pretty much up to date. So what do you think the future in processes, whether it's hydrocarbon or any type of extraction process for cannabis, what do you think the the future is. Just because I got you here and I know you have a lab background, I always like to get people's opinions on where the industry is going.
Well, I feel like there's many. You're gonna have just different sectors. That's just how almost all industries work as well. Is like different. So like depends on like when you ask that question, I hear in my head I hear so many different things, like from an industrial way, from like business standard. What I was almost talking about with Evolab to almost the end consumer, because like when you say about extraction, that's so vague. Like you can do in my opinion what you know a lot about, and I don't know a lot about it. I know the basics, but of like water hash and stuff like that. That's a market right now that, in my opinion, is way different than what it was 2 years ago before I left.
No, for sure.
And it's a way different, like totally different game. But then industrial, you're talking about like, okay, industrial hemp, that has a huge extraction component to it. Mm-hmm. And like what I think is a lot of people right now are into, doing, getting things to an isolate form to then being able to sell in bulk, to then be able to put in products, which isn't not necessarily bad. But what I think the hemp industry will hopefully and somewhat I think convert more towards is textiles, right. Is like growing a different form of, because if you know where hemp farms are, they look like weed farms now because there's certain strains to grow CBD more. But like if you're growing industrial hemp to grow more for rope and oils and hempcrete and stuff like that.
Yeah, they all have their different properties that they're good for. Some are better for oils, and some are going to be better for plastics because they're fibers and things like that.
So like that industry, I hope will take off in a way different way.
See. So with legalization, with the federal movement of CBD and hemp, now I see them being able to do federally illegal or federally watch things like acid-based extractions. Because you don't really see that. You don't see that at all in the cannabis industry because all those chemicals are tracked and all that. So, I mean, because they don't want you making cocaine and ketamine and things like that. But if you can get to a faster crystallization process to get to that crystallized THC from an acid-based extraction, I don't see why they wouldn't do that, or a CBD.
Well, I mean, they're making it in labs right now, so like that is the quickest way to it.
Israel's killing it too,
Well, I'm saying they're making
like the medicinal stuff.
Yeah, just the oil extractions, and so now the problem is that when the industry started, they weren't paying 6-figure, 7-figure petrochemical engineers to figure this out because they were just laughing. I was like, no, you can't afford my salary.
Yeah, I mean, I remember seeing documentaries like several years ago about cannabis and the industrialism and the future in it of people in India making like little types of medicines and, little capsules and hard pills that people are taking that's made from cannabis and Marinol and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, just hopefully we can finally get some fully educated folks that dedicated their life to, that industry,
cannabis medicine.
Well, extraction, for pulling oils out, and because they're all in the petrochemical.
I mean, there's just so much true research, in my opinion, that needs to be happening, like true research, and I mean, like I want true white papers without government, funding, but which for that need to happen, there needs to be a big and most of the time that's just comes from the medical field,
Sure.
Which can sometimes be very skewed as well. Cool. But
I mean, that's a pretty good to the industry. I mean, we've gotten up. I think we've pretty much reached a pinnacle of extractions and concentrates. I know they're going to come up with some more recipes and things like that. That's typical, but I think we're reaching 99.9% purities and from distillates and isolates. So I think you from a lab person,
but the thing
got out at a good time. I mean, you're like, we've seen it all,
Yeah, the one thing though with labs and what they can do, what they are doing with, especially in the medical field and stuff, they want to like take cannabis and like fully like, all right, we have this compound, this compound, this compound, this compound, and then even terpenes, this exact terpene, this exact terpene, this exact terpene, this exact terpene. And there's so many and so many different ratios and very small percentage that makes up each strain. And they want to be like, oh, this does this, this does this, this does this, this does this. And that's not what cannabis is.
Right.
Like the entourage effect, having everything together for a medical patient is definitely, and that's just in the medical side. Like, yes, you can separate them all and smoke them all, like THCV and all this stuff, and like see how it feels.
That's just connoisseur stuff at that point.
Well, yeah, and I think there's always gonna be markets for that stuff, but like,
Well, you've done some
true knowledge is what
you've
is
done
needed.
some good things. You've blazed some trails. You've worked with technology that not everybody got to see right off the bat. I mean, this thin film distillation that was groundbreaking. That set a lot of standards for purity and how things were to look. And then I know that you kind of stepped away from the industry a little bit. And did some traveling and stuff. And let's talk a little about that. What the little time we have left, and where you did, and what kind of set you on your path that was non-cannabis, because it's kind of rare for people to get so far in the industry to set a lot of standards and then just kind of like step away when things are going so well. Because I mean, the industry was booming. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, I love events, and that's the events were going big back then and stuff like that. Honestly, there was this thing. I was working at Evil Lab, and like the gentleman that was my manager at the time, and I kind of looked up to, kind of got me into yoga.
Sure.
He was like, "All right," he basically like forced me into. Can you hit me up a dab?
Yeah, I got you.
I love you. I saw this guy over here. I'm like, I want to dab too. But no, so basically, he kind of forced me into going to a yoga session. He's like, all right, I'm going to pay for it. I'm going to pay for food. I'm going to get you high. Worst thing that'll happen is you lay on your back and, you fall asleep. And I was really like kind of almost against it, like a dick. Like, fuck that. You know what they say? People that can't do, teach. And people that can't teach yoga. Like, I used to say shit like that. Like, and now I'm actually like a certified yoga instructor.
Yeah.
And shit like that. But anyways, I basically went to this thing after I did yoga for like 3 weeks, really enjoyed it, and then the same guy is like, hey, you gotta go to the yoga studio tonight and try this thing. It's called breath work. There's a guy who only comes every couple months, and you're gonna love it, man. It's like you're gonna trip your balls off. I'm like, oh, we're gonna take some drugs or something like that, and he's like, no. Basically it's like a type of meditation, just go. So I listened to him. I went, and it changed my life. I actually walked in the next day when I supposedly had the best job, in my opinion. We made the most oil in 2016.
Wow.
I had like kind of like a cool job. I got to test stuff out and this and that. I walked in though and kind of put my 2 weeks in and quit. And basically this breath work really showed me. It was like kind of honestly like taking acid, shrooms, and DMT all at once, but with no drugs, just your breath. And it was very transformational. I started my own company, did that for about a year and a half. And then this is when I was stepping out, doing kind of a lot of, I started a company doing kind of a lot of stuff that you do, content creation, running people's Facebooks, Instagrams. I did a lot of parties. That was my fun thing. That's what I liked. That's what, helped me make my name, is I used to do a lot of different events here in Colorado. Shout out to everybody that supported me. Love you. You guys are awesome.
Yeah, those are good times.
Yeah,
man.
those are good times.
Events everywhere.
Yeah, events all the time, like every day of the week, like, and
Terp trials.
yeah, dude, and I gotta talk to you about that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm hoping to bring some stuff back, but basically,
So you learned a bunch of the breath work, and
and
it really
I
made a change in your life, and
just wanted to really. I saw that the cannabis space was always going to be here. I could always come back to it like I am now, but me getting older was going to keep happening. I really wanted to travel and see the world because I grew up very poor, never really could do that. I talked to somebody that went and traveled in Asia, and she did it for like 6 months, and I was like, oh, that's probably gonna cost like $100,000. Like, I didn't even know how much it would cost to travel in Asia for 6 months and stuff like that. I didn't even know where to guess. And I really sat down with her, and I asked her a couple questions, and found out, oh, it's not that expensive. It was literally like $5,000.
damn.
Like $5,000. Oh, thank you. Ready?
Yeah, I would totally do that for $5,000. I mean, for 6 months, shoot, totally. I stepped away from the industry for about 5 months from early 2019. Did some CBD distribution in other states, and so it was a good time. I didn't have any regrets stepping away because I felt good. It was like a breath of fresh air, and then coming back in, I just had all the confidence coming back into it and working again in the industry and doing promotions and doing new events.
Thank you, sir.
So how was so now that you're doing breath work and you're working with people, so was this real receptive to other people that you've talked to about it? And
It's weird. So I'm a big believer in like energy and we're all connected but like disconnected, and you know, some are listening, some are not, like we're like radio tuners, and you know, the energy put out is the energy attract. You know, to a lot of people, you know, the blah 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 and this and that, and some people it's fake, to other people it's their whole lives. But yeah, I basically know that breath work is, you breathe, you have to breathe whether you're, you know, consciously thinking about it or not consciously, which is what most people do. And you know, when you connect with it, it's really amazing. And I really haven't had a negative experience with people. Like the worst thing that happens in classes with me, and the worst thing that happens when I do even privates and stuff like that, is like you go into like a in-between state. It's like a very meditative thing. You lay on your back, you do certain breath technique. And I call it like riding the roller coaster. Like the worst thing that can happen is you kind of fall asleep. The best thing that happens is you're open, you're receptive, and you kind of see, you know, that maybe you've been asking the wrong questions and that you actually already have the answers if you just looked in a different direction.
Sure.
And yeah, it's been really transformational.
Well, I mean, you traveled for 6 months, Nation, and did some incredible, you know, traveling and staying out there. I love staying in other countries. It's remarkable.
Yes.
But you know, so you stepped away from the cannabis industry, and then you started doing some breath work. And so now that you're back and you're kind of dabbling again, how has your journey and your new lessons benefited you on your step back into the industry?
So the biggest thing is, I feel it's like not just with this industry, it's with like life period, is, you know, you come across people that have, sometimes you just feel bad about a situation or certain, I say energy, but it could be another feeling for you. And for me, before I wasn't really receptive to it. Like I was a really outgoing person, love parties or like being around a lot of people, but didn't understand, you know, that the truest thing is like who you surround yourself really does affect your life.
Right.
And
no, absolutely.
It really affects your life, like to the truest core. So
surround yourself with people that are just like you. I mean, if you want to be a master grower, surround yourself with master growers. You want to be a millionaire, surround yourself with millionaires. You know?
Or if you, because like sometimes you can't do that. Essentially, like sometimes you don't know any millionaires. So how are you gonna
surround yourself with positive people?
You surround yourself with the people that have the mindset of that. So there's a book out there. I think it's like millionaire mindset or something like that. And it's more about not like what you have to do to be a millionaire, but the mindsets that millionaires have and the commonalities between those.
Sure.
And those are the things that I really look for. Like for me right now, it's like, why am I here doing this right now? When I've actually kind of told myself to take a step back from social and do more self journey right now for time being. But I'm here because of the energy. I said, hey, it's good. You guys are good people. You know, I like being around this type of energy. So do it. There's nothing bad that can come from it. And that's, I guess, what I've learned the most from before I left to now is really understanding myself more. Understanding, like, I've already dropped clients since I've been back in certain work and certain friends and certain people because I've just seen that those people and those relationships, whether it be work or any type of relationship, aren't benefiting me.
Not serving you.
And I'm the only one looking out for me.
There you go. Yeah.
Even though I have parents and God bless them and I love
true.
them, I'm thankful that I have them. They're not looking out for me anymore. And I'm only looking out for me.
No, that's true. You know, you got to take care of yourself absolutely first. You know, and if it's not good for you, then you got to think about your other options. Yeah, I totally believe that. That's great, though. You know, it's good to see that you're back in the industry. It's good to see that the breath work is helping you, and you know, and I also see you working with good folks like the guys at Positive Vibes.
Shout out to Jeremiah and all the crew.
What?
Positive
Last
Vibe,
night was
Max and
awesome.
Cage, and
I'm just gonna
all
say
those guys are awesome.
Yeah, shout out to those guys and
shout out to
thank you.
all those guys at Positive Vibes. Best head
Yeah,
shop.
thank you again for last night's little shindig. It was fun. I had an awesome time.
I think it's great that you're
come to the
reaching
next
out.
one.
You're doing these group sessions
I
with the
randomly found
community.
it.
Those guys are just nothing but smiles and positivities. You know, it's I love going in there every time.
Well, yeah, they're like, shout out to them because they're awesome people, but shout out also to them because they support me in my breathwork journey. So I actually moved back to Colorado the day COVID started, like March 23rd, like the day quarantine started and all that stuff. And my whole goal was to come back. I had like a couple like in-person events, like, weekend events and, huge retreats where you do yoga and breath work and cannabis involved, all of it. And like had a whole bunch of stuff planned. And this is the worst time in history, the fucking worst time in history to say, hey, you should come to my event and breathe with me. That is like not only the event part, but like what we're going to be doing at the event. But at the same time, it's the best time because it's what's needed. But shout out to them because they are one of my regular clients. I do like, if you're a company out there, you guys hear this, this is amazing for companies and your employees, but I do it with all of them. Every other week we, go in the morning, lay down, have an awesome breathwork session, and it gets me energized just as much as I think it gets them, hopefully.
Yeah, so I think it's great that that's what you're currently doing, working with these guys. I see a lot of good things coming out of it. I see a lot of positivity coming out of you and your work. So it's nothing but good. Now let's talk about what do you want to do once we can start seeing each other and opening up and going having events. What type of things do you want to do with breath work?
Well, I'm not waiting. All right, people. I'm just letting you know.
Right,
you guys are getting the
talk about
lowdown. I'm not waiting because just, I don't believe that like there's going to be a set date. So I'm not waiting. I'm going to live my life. And if you want to live your life with me, you can, because I actually have some things in the works. And I know the one thing I have learned in this industry, and the one thing I'm very happy for and I'm grateful for every day, and when I meditate, I say I'm so grateful for this, but is my mind and my mindset and the way I think. But I know that through legality ways, I know how to still throw some events. It won't be humongous. Like I won't be able to throw 700 person fight night events, right. But I'm working heavily, hopefully on a couple places for breathwork in the Colorado area where it will be able to be, established as a private event. So it's like the same thing as like right now. Technically, I'm in your place, in your house, in your establishment. By law, they can't like come in here and like fine you or get you in trouble for me not wearing a mask. Right. Like they can't do that. No, like we're smoking. Yeah. Like I was invited over here. It's a private establishment. Like exactly. I can do, yeah. And you can do events the same way. You can do that. You just have to do them in a certain manner. And that's something I have learned and I do know. So I plan on hopefully doing something to help us all because we're going crazy here.
Yeah.
Nice. No, I appreciate.
But when we can come back fully, I really hope for I think you have something amazing here. I think you can do amazing. We all can do amazing things, but you have the opportunity with what you guys have and the utilities you guys have at your fingertips to do amazing things. And I really hope that sooner than later we can get back to 420 is coming up, 710 is coming up. We didn't do shit last year. I know I am planning, hopefully, to have something going on.
Well, let's briefly talk about that. How does cannabis help you and benefit you and your breath work, and how can we combine that?
That's a long-winded question.
Just briefly.
Okay. Cannabis can help you. Well, cannabis helps me in multiple ways. It can be a dishelp as well.
But like for breath work in particular.
Oh, for breath work in particular. And the same thing, same answer. Like for breath work, cannabis can help you. And it can dishelp you as well. It's a personal thing. I really think it's about tuning into yourself, but I feel cannabis helps with that tuning into yourself if you're able to. Depending on where you grew up, your feelings around cannabis, there's a whole bunch to it. But with breath work, when I teach a lot of my classes, if you're a cannabis user, the terminology I use to help you connect with your breath and a certain way you should be breathing is very, very close. So if you've smoked, you don't necessarily have to smoke during class, but sometimes actually I like smoking before. It helps relax me, helps me, because usually before, you go into deep meditation breath, where class for me, I go into just regular meditation, before. I like to smoke before. It's not for everybody though. I don't always smoke because sometimes it's for me wrong. Like if I smoke, my mind is going to be, going racing too much. You really got to listen to yourself. If when you smoke a little bit or you smoke too much, you go all over the place and you don't know where your head's going to go. And
sure.
You got to listen to yourself. So that's what I like doing. I'm actually working hopefully on like I want to work even with you guys if you guys want to.
No, I'm totally down. Let's do it.
Where certain strains are for certain, like they have some people out there doing it, but almost for certain, not moods as much as like helping you get into like
Well, you have your different hits,
different hit. For me, at one point, I was meditating. I'm like, it'd be awesome to have certain strains for different chakras. Like if you were trying to release certain chakras, and I'm somewhat trying to.
So
I don't have a mass amount of cannabis different strains, but when I do meditate, I do know what I smoke, and I do sometimes write it down exactly how I feel and this and that. But I think it'd be awesome one day if But that's all about. I feel like
I love it.
What I do with breath work is like I kind of tell people like, hey, when you're smoking, to look at it in a different way too.
I love that you've went out and you found that connection between cannabis. You have buds and breath work. I love that. You're connecting with the people who are already smokers, so they can already get on the level on the breathing. You can use certain terminologies for them to link to. I think it's great. People can medicate before or during if it helps them to get to the levels that they need to. I think it's brilliant. I
like to tell people sometimes, like the first class, if it's like your first breath work ever, like don't do anything, like even for a couple hours before, because I don't want you to eat. Like for me, the first time I did a breath work class, I was like, this mother effer put something in my water, like snuck something and sprayed something in my. No, I'm not joking. Like
I get it.
I went through such a transformational experience where I was like literally like laughing and crying and screaming and almost physical pain at one point, where I thought this dude like had like nasal spray or something like that, and I didn't get I didn't get high before or anything like that, so I was like, it can't be the weed I smoked or anything like that. So I always tell some people, like, if you're skeptical, like, just like
try it out.
No, that's great. Well, good, man. I appreciate that. Thanks for joining us here. Why don't you go ahead and tell folks where they can see you at?
I'm on Instagram, like everybody else.
Cool.
Facebook a little bit as well. It's all the same. Mary's Motivation, like Mary Jane, but MARYS, and then Motivation, all connected.
Cool. I'll put up a nice little graphic for the folks to see, and that's great. I love that how you've kind of expanded your journey from cannabis into breath work, and now you've kind of molded them together, and it's you're unique. Nobody else out there is gonna be able to compare to you out there.
I really appreciate that, because right now, dude, we're all going through rough times, and even though I'm all like Mary's Motivation and all this, I go through negative down spurts too, and I go through hard times, and I go through rocks, and I go through ups and downs, and it's I appreciate it, because I respect you guys. So coming from you guys, it means a lot.
And I'm definitely going to take you up on that offer and to learn some breathing from you.
Yeah, honestly, anybody hit me up, DM me. Honestly, I'm at the point right now with the way the world is. If you have a place and you really want to do some breath work, we can work out like free breath work for the first class or two.
All right.
I'm just really trying to get this to people because I know it's beneficial. And especially right now with the way the mental state of the world is, I know it's needed more than ever.
For sure.
There you heard it, folks. Get a hold of my man Brett over here with Mary's Motivation if you want to get in some breath work for yourself. So thanks for coming in. I really appreciate it. That's going to wrap up this one. Brian, my main terp, staying over here. Thanks for your input.
Whatever. Thanks, guys.
I love it.
And Brett, thanks for coming by. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you guys so much.
Thanks for joining us, folks. And until next time, we'll smoke again.